Hello and welcome back to the Hopelessly Gifted podcast. I'm your host, Mark Talaga. All right. Today, like almost all days that we have on this podcast, it's really about the parents, right? You know who you are. There are times when you need support. You're listening to this podcast for a reason. You're looking for something. And I promise you today, you will get something. Because today we're talking to Teresa Nair. Teresa is the mother of two vibrant, twice exceptional kids and is twice exceptional herself. She holds a master's degree in education focused on cognitive diversity and a certificate in twice exceptional education from Bridges Graduate School. She's the parent community and services program manager at REEL, REEL, which is Resilience and Engagement for Every Learner, a Silicon Valley-based nonprofit that supports parents and educators in helping neurodivergent and twice exceptional kids thrive through practical, research-based, neuro-affirming resources. Teresa also brings experience as a classroom teacher, consultant, and nonprofit board member supporting disability communities. Teresa's work is deeply grounded in research, lived experience, and a commitment to strength-based, compassionate support for families. Welcome, Teresa.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. So the way I typically like to talk with somebody who is so in this world is, how did you get your start? What brought you to this world? You know, what brings your passion into the world of 2E gifted neurodivergent?
Sure. It's well, once again, probably the untraditional path. I had no idea that I would be here doing these kind of things. My first degree was in computer graphic design, and I worked for Fortune 500 companies, designing and developing all kinds of wonderful high-tech stuff. And I was asked to volunteer in a middle school classroom to teach technology and just kind of introduce, this was way back in the beginning, how to use PowerPoint and things like that in a middle school classroom.
All right.
Yeah. And I fell in love with it. I had no idea that I was going to love teaching, but that was kind of what lit it up for me, was volunteering in a classroom. I went back and did some graduate work in education, master's in the art of teaching, those kind of things, and then became a teacher for several years. My husband and I then moved from the Midwest to the Silicon Valley Bay Area. And I was like, I've got a degree in tech. I should probably use it in Silicon Valley, right? So I went
Right.
back into technology, and it just wasn't for me. And I swapped back to teaching. So I've been teaching and taught in the Bay Area for many years also. Then I went in for more graduate degrees because I realized, even with the small subset of if I was working at a gifted school or if I was working with, these amazing minds, there was a subset that experienced education differently and accessed education differently. So I looked for a master's in cognitive diversity, and that's where I was really opened up to the idea of twice exceptionality, what it means to create and consciously explore cognitive diversity through an educational lens. And from there, I realized, as a consultant, when I helped parents understand like what they were really up against, going through, feeling challenged by, they became the strongest advocates, the best and the brightest, when they saw their kids as the best and the brightest. And it was this beautiful trickle-down effect. So for the last, I'd say, almost 7 years, I've been working with parents and helping parents understand all these, complexities, but empowerment too.
Oh, I love it. And first of all, very rewarding work. Some of my favorite work is 100% working with the parents, helping them see beyond their understanding of what's going on with their kid and with themselves to feel that empowerment. And it's just such a delight to hear your story. Now, I have a couple questions that are just related to you. So I hope we're okay turning the topic onto you for a second. Sure. You're like, oh, I think so. How did you know when you went back into tech that it wasn't for you?
Oh, I just remember thinking that I wasn't having the impact that I could. Like, I remember thinking, and this might sound horrible, but I was just making the rich richer.
Yeah.
And that I really wanted to be in the pipeline before that. I am so glad I had my career, because I got to see what my kids, my students were going to be stepping into. So then I came back as a better informed teacher. So I don't, wish I hadn't done corporate. I really found it to be very, very valuable, but not as rewarding. if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Oh, so for people that know me, and you might not know this about me, I used to work in video games, which as growing up, that was like, oh, this is my dream job. I'm doing what every kid wanted to do, growing up in the 80s and 90s. And wasn't for me. Now, for me, it was I was in over my head executive function wise. I couldn't handle. I was a smart guy, but I actually never learned any real skills to navigate that world, and so it kind of blew up on me. But I had the same sense of, is this really what I'm supposed to be here for? Is this really what matters to me? And so I always love when another person who's come into this world had that same, pathway of like, what really matters here? What am I trying to do?
For sure.
Um, and then for yourself, did you your own sense of twice exceptionality? You know, ah, on some level, I'm sure it's a huge blessing because you can speak the language, talk the talk, walk the walk with parents. But did you know that growing up that was creating challenges for you, or when did you become aware that that was a part of you as well?
It's been a journey for sure. So I think, and maybe, you mentioning growing up in the 80s and 90s. I grew up in the 80s and 90s in Iowa. And so my dyslexia was not diagnosed. She's a slow reader.
Mm,
Oftentimes the word slow and, challenging and those kind of words were used. So I was tracked very early on, because of it was never a diagnosis. It was more of this is how she's experiencing these things, right?
right.
Once I hit college, though, and the way education was approached, I really was able to kind of take my stride. I was able to spend a whole lot more time on projects and experiential learning and that verbal, where all my strengths were, right? And
Hmm.
so that's where I realized I did have strengths, and I was able to run with it and become extremely successful. I had great career, but like I said, once I started to work in a classroom and it was more along the language of diagnoses and what's happening, and then I became a parent. My kids started to go on their own journeys. I saw, especially my son, having many of the challenges I remember, and I thought, no, I want to make sure that he's not tracked into just language that is not helpful, right?
Right.
Slow and challenging and those kind of things are not helpful. And like I said, by that time, I knew there were strengths to this also that weren't being recognized. And so for me, it was through my own education and feeling almost underserved. Like I get what I probably could have if it had been done another way, right? Wanting to do it better, seeing classrooms and what it means to be a dynamic teacher that tries to, reach students where they're at. And then my kids really opening up my eyes. And so very late, life diagnoses, that kind of like feels right. It was just kind of one of those things. It's like, yeah, this is where it brought me.
Isn't it funny? It all comes back around. It all comes, to full circle. So, how cool. So let's talk about then your work at Real. So resilience and engagement for every learner, which first of all, love the name. So tell me a little bit about how you're incorporating that journey, that understanding into your work at Real.
Sure. So Real has kind of what we call like two pillars. So they educate the educators. They spend a lot of time making sure that, they go to the classrooms, they go to conferences and talk to educators about what it means to, or, whether it's universal design, different kinds of ways of approaching, these classrooms with different learners.
Hmm.
And then we've got the parent side, which is the side that I'm on. And for us, it is a lot about educating parents around resources, strategies, and empowerment, because I realized oftentimes parents get enough information that they almost feel cornered or backed up against a wall, like it's a lot and they're not sure what to do with it.
Right.
So we really put a lot of time and effort into, um, there's so many possibilities here. Like, let's open this up. Let's help you as a parent see, it's not just you're backed into a corner and it's a bad thing. Like, what can we do from here? So
Right.
it is, a lot of parent support, which is what I love to do.
Oh, I love it. And so describe to me maybe a typical parent or family unit that comes in, and what are they looking for from you, and how are you guiding them through a process?
So we're lucky to have a really vibrant online community, and it started out we are Silicon Valley Bay area focused. So we have an online Google group that has hundreds of parents in it, and it's one of the most supportive. So I've spent time in many online groups, and I would say this Google group is one of the most supportive, neuro-affirming groups that I've found, which is what I like. And so I spend time kind of moderating this group, helping people find resources when they ask questions about challenging behaviors, pointing them in the direction of some ideas. And a lot of parents jump into support. And one of the things
Hmm.
I get over and over again, whether it's through my small group discussions, we do small group discussions over, Zoom, or one-on-one consultations, parents feel best because they realize they're not alone. And I didn't realize this, but so many parents of neurodivergent kiddos or twice exceptional kiddos feel very isolated. And so creating a community has been a big part of how we support parents through, the research, but also through community and knowing you're not alone. Like you're not.
I'm just imagining all the parents listening, nodding their heads so vigorously they might be swerving off the road. So be careful out there, guys. But yeah, you're right, right? This isolation, this feeling of, my neighbors don't understand my kid, my parents don't understand their grandchildren, and the school doesn't and there's this loneliness that people don't realize that they don't necessarily have to go through if they can find a group where other people are experiencing a lot of the same things, though no kid is exactly the same. I'm sure just the notion that you're not dealing with the same level of struggle by yourself is enormous.
Right. And I think that there's a component of you're not imagining it either. Like,
Hmm.
you hear somebody else tell stories about challenging behaviors or, all of these things that should have worked. Like, this is the parenting strategy that's working for everybody. And you're like, well, why not me? Why not us? What's going on here? And then to come into a community that says, it's not working for us either. And this is what we tried. And this is maybe why it works better for that kind of, neurodivergent approach, and so it's kind of the whole experience of being seen, being heard, being acknowledged, and then empowered to then feel more confident in how, okay, I'm not just imagining this. There are things we can do. There are ways we can approach life differently and still successfully.
But we always say here that real hope is having a way forward. And it sounds like a lot of these parents find that when they feel hopeless, they don't see a way forward. They're all of a sudden being shown maybe several possibilities of things they could go towards or try or be supported in, which is invaluable.
Right. And so it's interesting because oftentimes, originally when I was consulting on my own, I was consulting in a niche where a lot of people came to me because I had a background in education. And that was the non traditional path for education. Public schools aren't working, private schools aren't working. Do I have a choice? What can I do? And so that's where it kind of started for me. And working with parents was talking about choice, talking about, you know, there are other options. And especially in this day and age, it kind of even gets exciting. And then, you kind of see it start to open up. And then you have these other themes as I started to work with Real and get into their communities, things like motivation and self regulation, these themes that kind of come across the communities that we can talk to and strategize around. So um,
Yeah.
it's kind of exciting.
So then is this, you said it's Silicon Valley based, but is it open to everybody? Can anybody join this, group?
Well, and that's what's been exciting, Mark, and because my family, after almost 20 years, left the Bay Area and we're living back in the Midwest now. And twice exceptionality, neurodivergence, gifted, quote unquote gifted is everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there really is, there's a concentration in the Bay Area, I think. But when I hold like online Zooms and I have literally parents from all around the world. I've had parents in my groups from Brazil. I've had parents, in my groups from Canada. And all of them are there because they're like, I know you guys are Silicon Valley based, but, and I'm like, it is in our name. It's a part of our mission, but the kids are everywhere.
Right.
Complexities are everywhere. I'm glad they found us, kind of thing. So yeah, welcome.
Yes. Oh, good. Because
Mhm.
again, I'm always whenever I give talks, I tell people you need to find a group. You need to find a people that support you, understand what you're going through so that you're not doing anything alone. And here we go, a wonderful resource to all parents out there to have a group to join that has understanding and that can connect people to resources.
Mhm.
What do you find is I asked this question not to talk about the negative things, but I ask this question because there's a lot of people out here listening that tend to feel like their situation may be more challenging than what others go through. And so what I want to ask is, what do you feel is your biggest challenge in trying to serve this population? Where do you see it feel particularly sticky or hard to create a sense of help and support?
Um, I would say, I think it's kind of unlearning a lot of things. I
Mm,
think we've, as parents, even as being students ourselves in the past, we learned a lot of language around what is laziness and things like that excuse me, might need to be relearned. Like, laziness might not be what we were taught, right? And so helping parents kind of let go of a lot of misinformation or information that we now know differently, like that we can
right.
understand from a different lens and a different perspective. But it's really culturally ingrained. A lot of it is just very ingrained in us. These concepts of what is success, what
Right.
is lazy, what is, and so helping parents to kind of unlearn that and let go of that and then see, even maybe possibilities
Right.
it's sticky, but it's worth it.
Oh, well, 100%, and but you're right. There is a systemic or cultural or, a bigger nature to the idea that some of these challenges that kids go through or what parents are feeling challenged by with helping their kids or supporting them gets interpreted as moral failing, right?
Right.
You aren't doing enough. You're not trying hard enough. You're not wanting this bad enough. Rather than, yes, going to the research or going to how a brain functions, and especially an asynchronous neurodivergent brain, and what pieces may be missing so that there is more of an understanding of what's really going on. And then also at the same time, this is where I get into the sticky place, is having sometimes the parent realize that it applies more to themselves than they're willing to admit.
Ooh, yep.
Like you,
Another
yeah,
one.
you and I are great. We're like, oh, twice exceptional, 10 times exceptional. Yeah, we get it. Like we experienced it. We can see it. We're good with it. But for a lot of parents, they're like, well, my parents just told me to work harder and that's what I did. And it's like, well, there might
Mhm.
be more to that.
Right? For
Yeah.
sure, for sure. And yep, that's a whole nother can of worms that, and my team and I often talk about the journey. And
Mm-hmm.
even as people journey through, whether it's they get their child diagnoses first, they learn about those things, and then they start to open their own eyes, or, where are they in the journey? How can we meet them where they're at? Um, has been a kind of a life lesson for me, as opposed to let me just tell you everything you should know.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, if I give you the information, you'll know what to do with it. Not
Right? No.
necessarily. Yeah, yeah, I get it. Oh, you're one of the good ones, Teresa. All right. So, you mentioned something to me. This was prior to us talking today around, was it a class or a seminar you taught in Wisconsin? Something where you were having a really interesting experience with something you were teaching. And I wanted to hear more about that.
Well, I've done a couple. So one of the ones that I talked about was advocacy, and we
Mm,
do some really interesting things, not only with first understanding and kind of simulating for educators what it looks like and what it might feel like, whether it's to be sensory overwhelmed or confused with language, those kind of things. So kind of simulations, so that they can begin to kind of maybe think about what their kids might be struggling with, and then talking about advocacy and the power of modeling what it looks like to advocate for ourselves as adults in a healthy way, where we can take notes and maybe say, oh, maybe I should have approached that a different way and talked to so and so in another way. Or, how do we help from a young age kids begin to advocate so that as they step into understanding themselves better, they can then help their community understand each other better and themselves. Like this, there's great research coming out that says these are wonderful and important things that will follow a kid, through a healthy life when they begin to advocate for themselves.
So it's a real priority then for parents to understand what advocacy really looks like so that it's modeled down, because that skill, according to the research, is really what can help a kid work through a lot of things or maybe avoid a lot of pitfalls that a lot of kids run into, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, it kind of starts with kind of the education component. Why do I need these things? Why would I advocate for these kind of things? And then once I start to know myself a little bit better or our child a little bit better, how do we then help them step into showing their best foot forward because they know how to say things like, I'm really good at X, Y, and Z. Would it be okay if I did that instead of this? Or can I include a portion of X, Y, and Z because I feel I can explain the concept better? So all of this language that begins to hold them up with confidence and allows them to bring their best foot forward. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And what you're, basically teaching people to do is how to appropriately challenge a system, right? Because systems are somewhat feeling like they want to be locked in place. They want to be in homeostasis. And so when we ask for, can we do this in a different way? Can I demonstrate mastery through this method versus this method? On some level, we're teaching appropriate confrontation and challenge as a way to help better the system. Would that be a fair thing to say?
It would be. And I think, having been a teacher in a classroom, oftentimes there it's hard to know all of the, what everybody needs. You hope you understand what everybody needs, but for having a kid come up to someone politely and say, I would really like to try to do it this way. Can I show you my knowledge this way? It might not work for the kid, but it might be the teacher just being like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. And all of a sudden the kid goes from afraid of failing to I might be able to shine here. So yeah, it is. It's kind of looking at the system a different way.
Well, yeah, and helping the teacher, right? A teacher, oh, now I know that this is another bag and, or a trick in my bag that I can use for maybe another kid who's having a similar struggle. I love it. And that's where, we want to see systems working together to expand, to grow, and to, not so much feel like, you either got to keep people rigid in a box for how they're supposed to learn, or that the onus is on the teacher to differentiate to every single kid in that class in a completely new and unique way, which overloads, so it's got to be somewhere in the middle, right?
Let's partner. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it depends on the environment. Every school is different. Every teacher's classroom is different. Every, period class that they might have is different. Right. But, hopefully giving some opportunity for the parents and the child to say, let's partner here. Let's find some ways, because the teacher doesn't want to be continually butting up against quote unquote challenging behavior or disruption. So how could we work together and maybe find other possibilities?
Oh, I love it. That's so cool. And I assume a lot of this that you teach to other educators, Real kind of takes this on and is at conferences and things like that, teaching all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Very cool.
We do. We look to. Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to circle back on, just because I was given the best advice in my life, which is follow your curiosity. The idea that you create simulations intended to overstimulate people, I got to know more about that.
So there are some, and I found this to be really effective, like even more so, like, parents sometimes don't realize how much their child is struggling until they're put into a simulation that brings them to a challenging point. So I can give you an example of one of the simulations that I do a lot with parents. And this is, even over a video conference. I say, you need a piece of paper and a pencil. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to write down your morning routine and go ahead and begin. and I give them 2 minutes and they write down their morning routine. And then I say, okay, 2 minutes is up. Now I'm going to give you 2 minutes. And I would like you to tell me about something that you're really passionate about, something that really excites you, your favorite topic, but you can't use the word the. You cannot use the letter O. It needs to be replaced with the letter E. You need to make sure that anytime you use a T, that's a P. And so I give them all of these rules.
Wow.
And I give them 2 minutes and then I talk through it. So I'm like, I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm so excited to see what you guys write because I really want to know what you guys are excited, right? And exactly. And so here we are, and once the 2 minutes is up, parents are like, what the heck? Like,
I love it.
Yeah, they're all of a sudden, and I'm like, now can you imagine what this might feel like to do this for hours a day? Like this is a simulation of some of the rule following and the confusion and the all the overstimulation possibilities too. There's a lot going on even within just those 4 minutes where parents are like, whoa, this could be a lot. And and I even have parents that'll start to like joke in the middle of it. They'll be like, oh man, and I'm like, does your kid ever act with humor? Like it's a natural response, and they're like, oh,
Right. You start to see how people really react in that moment and be like, does that look familiar to you? And oh, what a lovely experience. I mean, because that really is what it's about is making people understand that it's not so simple. It's not just if they would just blank, then everything would be better. There's more going on there. You're complicating the thing of it. And whether it's the exact same experience as the kid's going through or not, there's still this understanding of, okay, maybe I'm underestimating what they're really up against and can start to understand their reactions a little bit better.
Right. Yes. Yeah. We always say, choose. We specifically say choose something that you love to write about and then put all these rules on top of it, because even when our kids have something that they might truly enjoy, if they're put in the wrong situation or a complicated situation that does not support them, they still might even struggle. Like, it could be like, he loves this. Why is he not able to do X, Y, and Z? And it's like, well, let's talk about a little bit what was going on around. Because a lot of communication, behavior is communication. What are we trying to communicate? Where is this going? The struggle's coming from. So.
Oh, that's great. It's all about assessment, right? All about evaluating more effectively. So what do you feel like is that bit of advice or that concept that maybe you give to parents that really gets the biggest reaction out of them? Something that maybe like for you, that's just how we do our work, but parents seem to react to when you put it in a certain way or give them this piece of advice.
Well, like I said, I usually try and start with that simulation just so they can even have a glimpse of what 2 minutes feels like when you're confused and you don't understand the rules, but you have something you want to accomplish, and so kind of put them in kind of that situation so that I can say, remember when you felt kind of that anxiety and that during our simulation. Let's talk about what that looks like for self-regulation. So being able to just take that simulation and put it into a lot of other conversations has been eye-opening for parents, because then
that's big.
Yeah. And then self-regulation means more now because they had a dysregulated moment that they can pinpoint, right? They can be like, oh yeah, like I would have loved to succeed then, but I couldn't because of, X, Y, and Z. Here we have an opportunity to build that bridge and relate then to your child. Most children, it's Dr. Ross Green, children want to succeed. They do well when they can kind of idea. And it's like, how can we then help them do well? Because they want to, just like you did at that moment during our simulation. So, how can we support kids that way too, now that we identify it a little bit more?
Right. And you have that anchor point that they can pull back to that's so in their mind and big. I think that's really wonderful. Yeah, I'm sure that changes a lot of people. Do you ever run into parents where they're like, okay, I get that. What do I do? And what do I do about it? And then what do I do next? Like, you have that experience a lot. What do you typically tend to, how do you work with parents like that?
That's my job.
Yeah.
I mean, there's never one answer. There's never one thing that's going to work for every child. or every classroom or every moment. So, I mean, even one thing that might work for this child in their math classroom is not necessarily what's going to work for them at the end of a long day while we're trying to get them ready, kind of thing. So hang on a second, I'm going to let my dog out.
That's okay. Yep, we can take a break.
Thanks. Okay. So coming back, that's what we do. And I think that parents really do well when we acknowledge that it is a unique situation, but we have possibilities. These are some strategies we could use. But once again, it is a lot of conversation. It's a lot of talk. It's a lot of sharing.
Yeah. Well, in the process itself of going through talking and sharing and exploring without feeling like you have concrete solutions and answers can be very dysregulating for a lot of parents out there who may be hiddenly twice exceptional, 10 times exceptional. They don't know it. And so, the idea that, you have resiliency in your, main title, and it's a big part of what you do, seems to be very important. The idea of that going through a process of figuring out how to help both ourselves and our children does require some level of resiliency.
It does. It does. And I think that's why the community aspect is so important. And one of the things that I know is very helpful is that when they're ready, they can come back for more. It's not just this kind of, here is the information, do what you can with it. We're walking away from you, as much as we want to build an environment so that as you, as an adult, as you as a parent, as you as, even your personal journey, begin to take those steps forward, you have support. You have that ability to be resilient, because oftentimes it comes from knowing that you're not alone, that you do have options. And so, yeah, that's kind of built into who we try and be as providers and as a community.
Oh, I love it. Nobody does anything great alone. This is wonderful. So tell you what, Teresa, please share with people how they can find you, how they can find your organization, and just as a resource for them if they want it.
Sure. Well, I think that probably the best way to find me directly would be at Teresa. It's TERESA at real2e.org. And so Real2e is spelled REEL, the number 2, the letter E.org. And our website address is the same. It's REEL, the number 2, the letter E.org. And that's where you'll probably have the best idea to kind of see what it is. It's a variety of options. And like I said, I have parents that stop by, they get a little bit. I might not hear from them for a week or two. I might hear from them 10 times over 5 days and then not hear from, right? So it's kind of one of those things where hopefully that'll give them an opportunity to start where they feel comfortable, looking around, seeing what it is that they want to kind of explore.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And then the Google group, is that something they can join by checking out the website and finding it there?
Yeah, the website's there. We also have speaker events. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dr. Megan Anna Neff. She does some amazing things with like self-care for autistic people. She's burnout. She's got some really great stuff. So we've got her coming up as a speaker, free speaker event that will be later this month. So not only is it, community as much as, like I said, resources that you'll find there too, and events.
Well, I encourage all my listeners to check it out if they find that interesting, because it does sound like a really wonderful resource, and the less alone you are, the better. So, Teresa, I want to thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate your time. And until next time, everyone, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.